So this mic's not on, it's just for the video, right? Is this fine? Can you hear me on the video? Cool. Okay, firstly, thanks so much to Herman and the team for inviting me. And my name is Marthinus Grobler, so I want to talk about the synergies between Bitcoin and free private cities and just explain what the concept of free private cities is. And as you'll see, there's a lot of obvious synergies. So we'll quickly cover what free private cities is, and then the synergy between them, and then also how that can accelerate adoption. Not that Bitcoin needs anyone, but it can definitely help accelerate it. Or not that Bitcoin cares, I mean, but then, okay, so free private cities is a concept developed by Titus Gebel. It's sort of a new model of governance, and the idea is that governance is a service rather than that you are subordinate or bound into this apparent social contract where you physically have a contract that you that you sign, and it's provided by a private company for profit, which is important, which I can touch on later, and that private company is also acting as the city operator, and this is then a new product in the market of living together. So first, we can look at the relationship between the city operator and the host nation. It is built on, so a host nation would be approached, and we have had some successes in negotiation with them. Most countries just say, a lot of countries have some pushback against it, but a lot of them see the obvious benefits that they can have and are actually quite keen on it and looking for a way to make it work. So normally it's built on the existing special economic zone legislation that they have, and then we build it out to a special administrative region, which is a region with fairly a lot of autonomy that you can affect your own law system onto it, your own central bank or lack of that, your own financial regime or not, and also your own immigration that is sort of tied to the host nation's immigration, so that you can also say no. Some people you can evict some people, for example, if they don't pay up, and it is embedded in the host state's constitutional framework. So this whole thing is a legal route towards building alternatives. It's not sort of a black market in between the cracks. So there's a lot of legal surety for this, which is great to help secure funding and use certain institutions as well. Then after that legislation is passed by a host nation, then you'll have a certain contract which would say, listen, we want in this area, we want to do this and that, and you'll negotiate it with them. And maybe they say, okay, you can do this, but we would like our criminal law to still be applicable in your zone. And then you can say, okay, yes, but let's remove this. And you negotiate a lot of things, and then you have a physical contract and go with. And then the host nation also benefits from, there can be many setups of how you have this reciprocal relationship. One can be where they have regular payments for profit sharing, which is a win-win deal for the host state. Another can also be, if you imagine there is a little Singapore in just outside of Malmesbury, built up there. This obviously very good for the local and regional economies. And the idea is also that it's very much based on, it's not just an enclave for international people necessarily. It's very much based on being adopted by locals first. So it is a good relationship with the host nation. Then secondly, on another level, there's the city operator and the relationship to the residents. So like I mentioned, a citizen contract is signed, and this will act as a personalized constitution. You can't change it on your own. It has to be bilaterally changed. So that is voluntary, which is great. So as we know, value is created when voluntary transactions takes place, and then This is also gives you rights and obligations of both the city operator and the residents are clearly defined. So you can, if someone reneges on the contract or doesn't perform, you can take them to court quickly, and it is quickly sorted out. And then, unlike traditional governments, the city operator has no special rights or immunity. It can be taken to court, and the city operator is contractually obliged to protect the residents' life, liberty, and property. So that is sort of the key of the contract, I would say. For example, if you say that you do it, then say your bikes get stolen in a city, then the city operator is liable. He said he'll protect it, and there's theft, and he'll pay you out. And so that's that. And if he doesn't, you take him to the arbitration court that was specified, and that's sort of the end of story. It can be maybe take you a day to get to the end of that saga. Then the incentives of this model is that there's obviously now skin in the game. Instead of a normal authority, this authority has skin in the game. Its brand name is connected to it. So the idea is that this city operator would like to do a few of them in the region or across the world, and it'll look after its brand name. So you'll treat your citizens as customers. It doesn't mean they're not citizens in the mean of creating community as well. So it's a great alignment of incentives, and in just a normal profit and loss motive, which is that alone is enough. I don't think people normally understand that profit is actually a virtue. It is if you make profit out of something, it's just a testament to the fact that you are serving society. And the more profit you make, the more dire that need was for the society that you serve. With the big caveat, of course, that it's free transactions, which most of it is not happening in a fiat world. There's always we're forced to do some things, not. But in this ecology of freedoms, you can imagine that if you make profit, it really means that it has been a voluntary transaction behind that. And yeah, I think that's really a virtue. And it's also another question that sometimes pop up is that these places, always on the face of it, might seem to be only for rich people. But the profit and loss motive, also goes to show, if you take other examples, if it, the market is looking good at any example. Let's see, shoes. The market is much better at giving shoes to poor people as the government would have been. So then another nice incentive is the competition between other city operators or normal jurisdictions. You have to vie for clients from whatever nice cities like Cape Town. At the moment, this competition is not stiff at all, but I think in future it'll be inevitable that there would be some decentralization and people would compete for customers to live with them. There's also the liability of errors, which keeps the city operator in his place, and then the responsiveness to residents, meaning that the city operator has to look after the wants and needs of the residents as customers. Then the synergies for, sorry, just take a sip of water. So the synergies of between free private cities and Bitcoin. So firstly, it is a free private city would really have a very high advantage in using Bitcoin. Firstly, it's to create a low time preference culture where fiat doesn't ruin anything. You can everything. You can look at a lot of most of the ills in society can be seen over to that. There's a lot of, you don't sit with this demand side economy that is where degenerate behavior is encouraged by just printing more money. But that goes further than just the money itself. It's also aligning with the values of building out institutions and build quality stuff that lasts. It's obviously easier to do business. Trade is easier. It's an easier flow of capital. And there's more price discovery as well. So price discovery is a key one in that at the moment all our capital and people's efforts are sort of directed by central planning, and it's whatever's favorable or would keep people in power, you know, all of the problems of that. And that means that it's a massive misallocation of resources. If you're in a situation where you have better price discovery, and you can only do that on a sound money, and especially on Bitcoin, which is the soundest of them all, this leads to a lot of things. I mean, how do we know what's the true cost of not having fossil fuels, or what's the best from that to what is the correct width for a sidewalk? All of that needs to go to a process of trial and error and price discovery as you go along the way. Then the other synergies is obviously privacy and individual rights. There is individual rights, just a quick thing, it doesn't mean to foster individualism, for example. It is just the more individual rights you have, the more you can act voluntary on building in transactions. So you can then build out and voluntarily cooperate in these super organisms, from tennis club to school to all kinds of community structures and societal structures. And these structures are then much more resilient, and if they're done on a voluntary basis. Bitcoin can also limit the exposure to the business cycle. Obviously, the larger it is and the more circular the economy is, the more you are shielded from the sort of Keynesian-driven business cycle, and which can be a major thing. The idea is also that it wouldn't be just one city; it will be a whole network of cities in time. And some of them wouldn't all be done by Tipolis. It might be done by a lot of other companies, and they can share and have alliances in certain, create certain networks, and you can even tie in existing networks into that's in other countries, or you can even tie in abstract networks. So it doesn't have all to be physical for flow of this. And then the confiscatability lowers the risk of violent action against a free private city by the host state. There's no Fort Knox that they're going to want to invade, which might be a big one across the road. And it also might be key to initially give investors, especially long-term investors in the vision, the surety that this can help. So that's a great way to ensure the safeguard of that. And then the synergies, why for Bitcoiners, why if free private cities would be great, is that we think it'll be the best potential Bitcoin citadels. If you look at a lot of online communities, it's great, but if you look at real true community that's real resilient, is if it is in person. And you see those persons, quite often face to face in a walkable city, almost like a university campus, if you like. It's sort of our ideas of walkable cities is sort of a remnant of the past. We can't even imagine. Most people haven't grown up in it, so that really creates these super strong communities. And I think our human nature co-evolved to the fact that we have a lot of evolutionary residue, or our human nature is shaped around meeting people, looking people in the eye, and how do you trust them? I think that's why wherever you look, sometimes you'll recognize little faces in something. Your eyes trained, to really look very fine for faces and expressions and whatever. So other connections are great, internet and all kinds of abstract communities, but the superior one would definitely be face-to-face. And especially if you want to raise children and stuff like that. Then obviously the freedom of currency, you can use your Bitcoin to pay tax. It helps for Bitcoin to become just further the take-up of it being used as a money and the adoption to money, and not just be a lot of people use it as a savings tool, but that's definitely not the idea. If you have this community or citadel, it can become that. This all helps with price discovery and ability to experiment and innovate with a lot of tools. We haven't scratched the surface yet about the solutions that we can give to the fiat world in all kinds of institutions and sectors. If you have that, there's I think a lot of innovation to be had. And then we spoke about the community and the physical proximity of Bitcoiners, not only being a node where other people can come in, but also the people living there permanently. Then the political decentralization enhances the resilience of the Bitcoin network. That is, it might be not for Bitcoin itself, obviously, but I would say for all freedom projects, it would be good for people working on freedom projects, or that you start experimenting with new jurisdictions. If you can, just to safeguard yourself as an insurance policy to yourself and your business, and because they are out to get you, and it'll be good if you have this that you're not sort of rug pulled by anything. And I think this is definitely going to happen. They won't be successful, but the more you sort of experiment with other jurisdictions and have footprints in them, the better for your cause. It also helps to not just as an insurance policy, but also where your product can thrive. And remember, it's not just one city. It's you'll have access to a whole network of free private cities and their partners eventually down the line. Then so the prospects for adoption would be the worldwide network of cities. Like I said, building out a whole network of them, and they might be they might be similar to the Hanseatic League, and eventually, because you're part of this network, you are more resilient to sort of foreign clamping down, or say you're shunned eventually down the line from the financial system. You can say, okay, well, our network is large enough to say, okay, we're not gonna do what you tell us, and we'll go it alone. We have enough partners to survive it. And there's also space for experimentation. Free private cities allow host states to test Bitcoin adoption in smaller scale before a nationwide policy. This might be a very significant factor for states to transition to. Obviously, El Salvador is a sort of a bit of an outlier on that, but this might really help to take the fear out of that and say, oh, it works well, and eventually you build it out to that same host nation in which you have a free private city. And lower volatility and the Bitcoin standard. The true revolution in adoption will come when Bitcoin is used as a unit of account. Free private cities can be the pioneers in facilitating these. If you, I don't know if any of you know of Prospera. It's a project in in Honduras. They have just recently said that you can use Bitcoin as a unit of account, so you can pay your taxes in Bitcoin. And that is fairly significant. I think it's the only way in the world where, so now, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and you can really start working out from there. So this can also hopefully happen in a network of other cities. Then, to conclude, the free private cities can accelerate the transition towards hard money and a worldwide Bitcoin standard, together shaping a new future for liberty. There's also further to this, if you can imagine building new cities, there's a lot of money to be made because there's so much value that you can add. The normal fiat world, everything is, from education to medicine, health, everything we can think of is messed up, and everything can be improved on. So there's a lot of money to be made in this endeavor. Our business model can also be described, apart from that, as sort of venture real estate. So you go to a country and you acquire land that's still fairly cheap, and then you put the best jurisdiction in the world on that, the best legal framework, and all of the multipliers of, and then you start multiplying it by putting on better, no regulations or low taxes and the whole ecology of freedoms, from personal freedoms, etc. And all of a sudden that multiplies to a lot. And over time, it's a long view for investment, but that multiplies is significant. You're talking of thousands of percents. It's imagine you could have bought into Singapore a few decades ago. It's that's sort of the returns people are can expect. So there's a lot of money to be made, and there's a lot of money that wants to flow to that, especially on the project level. So it's actually not that hard getting funding for a project itself, because there's very, very obvious money to be made, even if it's just out of a real estate thing, low risk. That's why it's sort of a venture real estate. The risk of it is low. You're not going to lose anything. There's this base thing underneath it, and you can really, there's really a massive potential upside to it. And then there's also we're also doing a capital raise on the holding level, which would be tipulous. And so I think that's the last time that you can buy into it on the holding level. So if anyone of you are interested in that, you can send me an email at Marthinus, of Marthinus Grobler is my name, sorry, at grobler@tipulous.com, or you can just come and find me, and I'll give you some more information on that. I think that's about it. Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to give you the mic for the video, for the questions. Right? Is that fine? Oh, you're red. Okay, I'll repeat the question. I'll just repeat the question in here, right?
So these cities will be built from scratch, not existing cities. And do you have anything earmarked for South Africa?
So the question was that these cities will be built from scratch, and not scratch, and if we have anything earmarked for South Africa. So yes, we're looking at building it in greenfield sites. The whole reason for it would be that one of our key principles is voluntarism. So to try to change the regime of or the leadership of or take over the authority of an existing thing, we think wouldn't be right in that sense. It's not impossible that you can get a community where you have 100% people would say, okay, voluntary, I want to live in this new, under this new set of rules. But we think that it might be a very, very long legwork, and you also have a lot of legacy problems that you can inherit with that. So we're focusing on greenfield sites, and no, not in South Africa. We would like to. We don't know if certain countries are maybe more open to the idea. But down the line, South Africa would be a great place to do it, of course. Or otherwise in the region. On that point we are. So we're looking worldwide, and there is a lot of people approaching us with potential projects to say that they, people in governments as well, to say that they think this will be a good fit for them. And then we negotiate. We look at to see how many of the freedoms that we think is necessary to make it work is possible. Yeah.
So it's going to be like franchise. You guys are like running projects.
Yeah, so you can call it a franchise. That's correct, and I think that's a good thing that you, because of the brand name, that you can trust to get this skin in the game of that. Although each one would be quite different because the host nation's contract would be different. But there might be definitely some similarities to make it easier, especially if you want to move around through the network. So say maybe in the region there is a lot of these, and one part. Let's take South Africa for example. Maybe in George there's a free private city, but also in Kruger or in Botswana or in yeah, Witwatersrand, of course. Well, it's already one, so it's and
Liberland would be a micronation, so you guys are not on
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so the question is, Liberland is more their aspiration is more to be a micronation, so they're a bit of a different model, yes, where we would be, we would ask the permission of the host nation, so to make it legal. And we are really surprised of how many countries are keen on this idea. I think a lot of politicians know that free enterprise creates wealth, but they're in a position where they can't do it because they'll be forced out of government. There'll be a demagogue coming along, or a larger, a bigger demagogue coming along, and they'll lose their power if they do this. So this can also be a nice way to politically isolate them from it, to make little pockets of where they can experiment, much like China did. Yeah. Yes.
So it sounds like you have contracts at two levels. The citizens have a contract with the city, and then the city has a contract with the host nation. The resident to city contract seems reasonable enough to enforce. How do you enforce the host nation from rugging the city?
Yes, that's a great concern. So first of all, the thing would be to have a mutual beneficial relationship with them, and that is the whole idea. So that, in our case, would cover pretty much everything. But then there's a lot of other things you can do. You can have some, like in the case of Honduras, of Prospero and Honduras, where they have, if the if the Honduras government wants to get rid of them, they have to pay up a contract that was signed previously, and that money is held maybe in Kuwait or wherever you can say, and it's a massive amount. It might be, you might have something that you can say, okay, for every dollar we invest in this city, you have to pay $10 out or $15 out as well. Yeah, yeah. Well, Honduras can't really print dollars, but yeah, you can make it whatever, and you can also do it at the international bodies, where if that country would renege, then their credit rating would fall. And but look, all of these things are, some countries just don't give a crap. Because their government would all they're thinking of is staying in power, so they don't really care about ruining the country. So that's definitely. But we really, what normally happens is that you'll see that all the locals, and remember, this is not necessarily a thing where just a lot of international people come and live. There might also be a significant part of that, which is good. But the largest take-up would be against locals. So normally locals would come to your defense.
So the locals could still vote in the host nation's elections to keep people in power that let the...
Yeah, so you're asking if the host nation can still vote in the national elections to keep the...
Well, to keep the people in power that are...
Yeah.
helpful to the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
Being in South Africa, I mean, we have Orania. Would that be considered a free private city, or how do you see them?
So the question is if Orania can be seen as a free private city. They're doing... Well, yes and no. In a sense, they are. It's really admirable in what they've built there, and freedom is something that you build. And in that sense, they are, a very free place. But I think legally they have limited autonomy. Actually, I'm under correction, but I think it's just a court case. I can't remember the date, but that gives them sort of municipal. Freedoms and jurisdiction, yes, but they still have to pay income tax. So and they're flourishing down there in harsh conditions, and despite paying double in a sense, you know, for national tax and then having to pay for everything at the local level as well. I don't know. I can't imagine that they get a lot back from. There might be something that they get back for their tax money, but I can't believe that it's a massive amount. Like the whole of South Africa, I think we're one of the countries where what you pay in and what you get out is really the worst. Yes. Yeah. And then another thing that might be just interesting to say is that is our fiat sort of a line from Jimmy Song's book of how fiat debases everything. It debases your values and your dreams. And I spoke to, you know, every now and again you get across people and they are so mismoedig. What is that?
Disappointed.
Yeah. And you know, their dreams have been stolen. You can't do anything. Just something as easy as we met a guy in Prospera that wants to his life was he wants to be a teacher, and you just realize, okay, well, it's so easy to be a teacher there, and he's teaching Bitcoin, and he's really finding so much meaning in his life and contributing to society. And it's not supposed to be like this, you know, where you lose all meaning and the morals of society is also debased in the process. And yeah, so I think it can really speak a lot to that if you have this ecology of freedoms, and you know, you can build community from there. Yeah. Clock. Okay. Thanks.